My name is Edward, and we're here for a special behind-the-scenes interview with Jeong, brought to you by ASI Beach Pride Events. With us here today is 22 West, Daily 49er, Dig Magazine, and ASI Communications Video Production. So let's just jump right in. To start off, how was the show? How was Long Beach?
It was great. I mean, honestly, I've done a few colleges now, and I think it's my favorite one because to come on a Tuesday night right before finals. This is end of April, and that's not lost on me. And then also, on a personal note, I'm very flattered. But on another note, I just flash back to me being a kid at Duke, where I went to college, and where I met comedians, I met public figures, and now you remember these things, and it matters, So, and now that my kids are 11 and they're 7 years old, this is like 7 years into the future, So I think about that more. I think about that where like maybe. A few years ago, I never had that perspective, but I think about that a lot. So, it really, this is a great, I get something out of it too, you really, you really see the forward push, and of either representation or just in life, just pursuing your passion. I just like those things are very satisfying, like to have the person who wants to teach, and has a passion in teaching, but it's not, still uncertain about the family dynamics and how to manage that. I get that, and that speaks to me, and I've been there, so, and I get it,
On stage, you kind of talked about all your work, like your past work, and I just want to know what motivates you to do what you do, like more specifically, like your stand-up career and acting, and just in general, like the arts.
I think to me, like I think of that student that was talking about teaching. It's just the passion. Right. I think just what motivates me now is just love of what I do. I mean, I think sometimes you're motivated by money. Sometimes you're motivated by fear. Sometimes you're motivated to impress people. I think I'm at the point in my life where I'm just kind of motivated by love of what I do, and that's like a nice position to be in. It's a very privileged position to be in, but I think I'm literally just motivated by I just want to do it, and that's kind of that's really you want to have that kind of freedom. You want to have that kind of freedom to be in that position to just choose to do what you want to do.
From Dig Magazine, they asked how much of a say do you have when you're shaping the characters you play?
Depends on the project, depends on the role. When you're an actor, I think the biggest misunderstanding is that when you're an actor, you're really just a hired gun. You're just an employee. You may get all the adulation. You may get a disproportionate amount of the attention, maybe even a disproportionate amount of the money. But you're really just kind of a figurehead in act. But some of those figureheads have more say. The only time I've really had any say of anything that I've done that's significant was Dr. Ken, because I was behind the scenes. I had made sure I got the title of executive producer. And that was even a struggle, because they were just going to give me just maybe a co-executive producer. I had to fight even behind the scenes for those titles, because if I had that title, I knew I'd have that access to really have some say. And then that was really the first and only time in my career where you can dig in and you can start debating for real. Like, no, I want this show to go here. And that's really the only product I've been in where. There was kind of no argument who was the boss, and that was kind of very empowering. And you also wanted, you just wanted to make sure the story was told accurately and artistically, in a lot of things. So I think I learned a lot. It's also like this pilot I literally just wrapped days ago. This Emperor of Malibu pilot that was written by Kevin Kwan of Crazy Rich Asians. That was a very unique project where I'm just an actor on it, but they have given me, because of Kevin Kwan, and we have worked together on Crazy Rich Asians and we're good friends, he has given me like more say than I usually have, as an actor. So he really has given me a lot of trust and a lot of freedom. And I don't take that for granted, and I sometimes will exercise it, and judiciously sometimes I won't. I'll pick and choose. And it was not dissimilar to John Chu of Crazy Rich Asians. Like, he gave me an unprecedented amount of freedom. So what I have noticed on these last couple of projects that I'm doing, and hopefully, I say it all the time. If I could just work with people like John and Kevin the rest of my career right now, I mean, that'd be a great thing, man. It's just I feel appreciated, I feel respected, I feel heard, and we're collaborating.
Speaking of being heard, I would like to kind of talk about Asian American representation in the media today, and sort of you've definitely been a figurehead for Asian American actors, directors, just to kind of be more out there, be spoken. And so, do you have any thoughts, or specifically, what do you bring any of that to your characters when you're playing a certain role, like Senior Ben Chang from Community, or like the movie you were talking about, Role Models?
We actually had a dinner like recently where it was like it was I was very honored to be at this dinner, but it was like it was honoring Sandra Oh, where you had John Cho, and you had myself, you had Daniel Day Kim, Randall Park, Stephen Yun, and it was just like this private dinner, and we were all talking about that. It was just, there was no media there. It was just really just kind of just having drinks and talking, and all of us had just kind of said, and all of us are very different people. We have different points of view, we have different personalities and different styles, and I think we all agree is just kind of I think movies like Crazy Rich Asians, whether I'm in it or not, it really has. There's a palpable change. It's palpable, small, but still significant. And I think the best way to kind of push our movement is for us to be ourselves, is to actually not just, if I'm a certain personality, just keep doing that. Just be yourself, and not necessarily be your Asian self. It's because then that's not always art sometimes. So you don't want to, depending on project, I think the more artistic you go, because we're artists, and I think the more artistic you go, an expression of self, that will, as a collective, be seen as an Asian American movement. But I think since we're having a little bit more diversity of opinion and thought and approaches, just do that, and just be yourself. Because now we're finally in a spot where we can begin to just be ourselves, and not. It's good to be aware, but sometimes being too aware can limit your art. So just be yourself, and you can look in the final edit, and I don't know. I think that kind of fellowship I experienced, it was like about a month ago, was great. It was something that, there was less of there was less of this kind of expository, like, isn't this great? Two Asian Americans having Asian American drinks. It was, no, hey, we're just hanging out, having some beers. You know what I mean? So it was just nice to be ourselves. Yeah. And I think that's what projects like Crazy Rich Asians did. And also, I tell you, John Cho's Searching was one of my favorite movies, and he was being himself.
Going back a little bit to Crazy Rich Asians, we have a question that says, what did your children think of your character as Paiklin's father in Crazy Rich Asians?
It's funny because my kids were just about 10 when they saw an early cut. And they might have been too young to see it, and then we're on a plane, and Zoe, one of my daughters, was like, she watched it again, just a year, a little year more experience, and she loved the movie. I don't know what they think about my character. They just know kind of I'm like a goofball, and comedy's my thing. So, I think what I notice is they don't really comment on my acting as much, and they love Community. They love watching it, but they don't necessarily like my character. I think it's either too familiar or it's just too weird to see your father play something, So I notice they rarely laugh at anything that I do, and I think that's common with many entertainers and their families, their kids. They're just kind of used to it. It's a thing where, like, I've been on sets where, and Zoe actually has an aptitude for acting. She actually played my TV son's girlfriend on Dr. Ken. So she chip off the old block, and so she But it's funny, we did this music video together for a friend and played father-daughter, and I was just doing a lot of improvising and making everyone laugh. And Zoe literally was on her iPad going, "Can I go home now? And if I can't, can mom pick me up early?" You know, she just so not. I think that's just a kid thing.
Would you say that, not for your children, but for you, has playing this character, Paiklin's father, done anything for you in terms of fatherhood, and sort of what types of things have you like reflected from that role?
Yeah, I mean, I thought in many ways it was a tiny part and really like a grace note in the whole canon of the Crazy Rich Asian story. But I do think that bringing elements of kind of the craziness of like Chang or Chow, but also the fatherhood, the well-intentioned heart of Dr. Ken, which my character was, you know, you know, I think that was the most well-intentioned character I've ever played. And I did notice like John Chu did a great job just kind of bringing out those elements of like, okay, you had the comedy, but yet at its core, you actually had that parent. He was the only parent that loved his kids, loved his daughter, and when Rachel Chu, when she's at her lowest, she goes to the house where there's genuine unconditional love, which was the Go household, you know. So there was something to be said about the contrast of we weren't like you know, like old filthy rich, like, you know, that kind of old money, like the Young dynasty, you know, but we were kind of like eccentric, this newly rich, you know, family, but there was just a lot of love there. And that to me, that symbolism and that contrast was not lost on me in the story. And I definitely played the character as almost as like a complete contrast to Michelle's character in many ways. Yeah.
We have time for one last question, and this is from 22 West. Do you have any medical advice for students who are dying from finals week?
Oh wow, I just, you know, I don't know if this qualifies, but I think get your sleep because, and I look, I'm a hypocrite. I stayed up all night. I drink a lot of coffee, you know, just guzzling down some Diet Coke right now. So I'm not doctors can be the worst patients, you know, but I do remember, I think getting sleep is important. And it's hard because I would be that guy. I'm that guy that did all-nighters all the time. And I remember my worst example was I was taking, there was a physics exam and a midterm, and I stayed up all night as usual. And I said, just get 1 hour sleep, 7 and 8. Just went to sleep at 7 in the morning, get up at 8 a.m. And then my roommate came afterwards, and he came up to me, woke me up. He goes, "Dude, how'd your test go?" And it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was like, and I screamed, I cursed, and I ran all the way down to the physics building, and I just begged my professor if I could just take the exam. Like, you know, fortunately he let me take it the next day, but it was, I'm sure it was with a penalty, but it's just like I think just getting your sleep, that's just so important. And it wouldn't have moved the needle just staying up those extra 2 hours. You know what I mean? It was like, it's like my biggest thing. But just to wake up, not just you're an hour late. I woke up 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's insane. So I think that's and also, you know, on a real note, because I stressed out all the time in finals. I mean, you just do. And it's like, so it's so stupid to say, don't get stressed. That's a very dumb thing to say. But I think regardless of outcome, it's not the end of the world. Stop thinking it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You know, it's just not. If you don't get exactly, and it's something I live by. Even my dad, to this day, he told me, to this day, even when after Dr. Ken got canceled, he actually said, you know, life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. And I think that applies to life, you know, it applies to all of us in this room. Doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys. Get your sleep, get your sleep, get your sleep, get your sleep, get your sleep. All right.
We really appreciate you having you being here.
I appreciate you guys having me. No, I really wish you guys all the best. I really do. In life, I really do. Thank you guys.
All the answers that you've given us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much, guys.